Grace be unto you and peace from God our Father and from the Lord Jesus Christ. I was glad when they said to me, let us go into the house of the Lord. I'm Father Steve Sellers, and thank you so much for tuning in today to this brief daily message of hope. My prayer, as always, is that you are in a hopeful place today and are able to encounter the goodness, the love, and the mercy of the Lord, which are all there for us if we ask for them and seek after them. Unfortunately, we live in a day when not everyone is seeking after those things. There are competing agendas going on in our world today, indeed, as there always has been throughout time. And there's either the way of righteousness, goodness, mercy, and compassion, the way of the Lord, the way of the cross, or there's the other way. And we live in a time now more than any other where it's divisive. There are competing agendas going on and subterfuge and plots and schemes and conspiracies. And the media of all sorts are complicit in all of it, in whatever their particular agenda is. And we have big-sized adult problems today. And yet the question I want to ask today to you and to me and to all, what's going to happen to the children? As we adults are arguing and fighting, and it's getting worse by the day, and the media is getting more rancorous and bitter, the lies are flying around, and innuendo and speculation have replaced facts. What's going to happen to the children? I'm not talking about the teens or the young adults, the children. I spent close to 3 hours this morning helping a friend at his parish hear first confessions from 7-year-olds. This was the first reconciliation service for these children. Second graders, 7 years old. There were about 120 of them in all, and there were several of us clergy helping hear their first confessions. Those are very precious times for me and for priests and for the children as they get to experience the love and mercy of God. And they need more and more of that, and we need to make sure they get more and more of that. But I was thinking this morning, what's going to happen to them? What's going to happen? Now, I know these particular children have parents who care and love them enough to make sure that they're being raised in the right ways, in the ways of the Lord, and are learning about compassion and love and mercy and self-sacrifice. And yet they're still 7 years old. They still fight with their brothers and sisters. They still throw away food. They still pull the cat's tail. They still tell stories to their parents. They don't want to do their chore. They're 7 years old, for Pete's sake. But they are given opportunities to learn the ways of righteousness. What's going to happen to them? When I got home just a little while ago, I did some quick research because there are all kinds of studies I've come across in the past about what the future is going to look like. And I just picked a year arbitrarily. What about the year 2050? A good round number, the middle of this decade, the middle of this century. What is that going to look like? Now, these 7-year-olds in the year 2050 will be 37 years old. They're in the prime of their adult lives then, with children, with jobs, with a track record. They've taken my place and most of our places in the leadership of the world. What's going to happen to the world in 2050 when they get there? Well, I came across a very fascinating study a couple of years ago by Business Insider. Business Insider did a very lengthy study and an analysis of trajectories and followed some patterns and came up with what they call in the story 15 ways the world will be terrifying in 2050. 30 years from now. Now, let me just list a few of the things they came up with. I disagree with some of these, and I'll tell you at the end, I think they're totally wrong. But still, they're following today's trajectories. Actually, this was a few years ago. If they did this same study today with the bitterness that's in our society, it would be even worse. The number of people living in cities is expected to triple by the year 2050. More than half of the world's population right now, 4 billion, live in cities. That number is expected to triple. They anticipate the population of the world, Business Insider does, to go up over 9 million in the year 2050. They predict that air pollution will cause more lung problems and serious lung problems, killing more than 6 million people a year because of the pollution in the air. 1/2 of the world's people will have inadequate access to fresh water. Inadequate access, half of the world's population. Now that's half of 9 million, that they're 9 billion people they're anticipating. Right now, 2.7 billion people face water issues at least 1 month out of the year. So right now, we're at a very high 2.7 billion people. I think about 1 billion people don't have any access to fresh water. And that leads to all sorts of consumption of dangerous water and waterborne diseases, malnutrition, dehydration, and lack of ability to live any sort of a life at all. That's today already 1 billion people. The types of fish we eat in the year 2050, the type of fish we eat will be extinct in the year 2050, and the ramifications for that throughout the aquamarine industries and the food services industries and the health and welfare of the world, those are enormous consequences if the fish that we eat are extinct. Millions of people more will be without food. Rainforests, the tropical rainforests, will be gone in 2050. There will be new superbugs which have no treatment because the old antibiotics have been overused and no longer work, which means diseases will spread faster in the larger cities. The number of people, and this is a scary one, the number of people with dementia is expected to triple because still we're not taking these mental illnesses seriously today. We've yet to have any sort of a meaningful adult conversation in our nation about those with mental illnesses and especially mental degeneration and deterioration. We're not talking about it. We're still keeping that in the back closet. But those numbers are expected to triple from 36 million today to 115 million people then. There's going to be an increase in storms, more flooding, large-scale blackouts will be very common. There will be no more privacy because of the data gathering that's going on. We will have no more privacy. The data hoarding it seems like everyone's doing that. The cyber attacks will become more frequent and more serious. And oil and gas prices in 2050, according to Business Insider, will be prohibitively expensive, and no one can afford those anymore. So they're saying that's 15 reasons why the world in 2050 is going to be a scary place. And that's scary enough. But what's going to happen to the children in the midst of that? Well, you can only imagine. This study doesn't even touch on the lack of educational foundation in morals and manners and compassion and mercy and kindness that we're not seeing much of anymore. You know, we're struggling now with a new way to teach students in this distance learning that we're doing. But it still boils down to the parents. They're still the first teachers of their children. And many of them are single families, single parents, desperately trying just to get by. That number is growing as families more and more fall apart, which means our neighborhoods more and more are falling apart, and our cities are falling apart. Now, if we add 4 billion more people into our cities, what's that going to look like in 2050? Are we teaching people how to get along with each other? We're trying to, but we're being overridden by the mass media and the entertainment industry that's teaching a different message to our children about violence and being rude and crude and vulgar and taking what you want and arguing and fighting and using all sorts of foul language and accessing hardcore pornography more and more. Still one of the fastest growing industries in the world today is the pornography industry. And if you haven't talked to your 6 and 7-year-olds about it, you need to, because it's going to be too late if you don't. 7-year-olds already have access to that. If they've got a smartphone or an electronic device, they're using it. They're connecting to it. And nothing is off limits because Satan has made sure that this filth that's impregnating the world now is the worst ever produced. And it's instantly, massively available to anyone of any age, at any time, anywhere, any culture, any nation. All they have to have is an electronic device and a Wi-Fi. And they're there, and they're going there. Are we teaching them? Well, I disagree with Business Insider on this because I seen little kids this morning, like I did, whose parents are doing a great job of getting them to where they can be taught about kindness and mercy and love and compassion and hope. Because these children are going to change the world so that people like Business Insider and the negative doom and gloomers today are going to be proven wrong. It's going to be the children who lead us, and the children who are not the teens, it's before that. We get to them as they go into schools, and we teach them about how we live with compassion one toward another. And to do that, we sort of follow the teachings of St. Paul in the book of Colossians. This is Colossians chapter 3, starting at verse 12. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive whatever grievances you may have against one another. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. And over all these virtues, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. Pray for the children, pray for the children, pray for the children. They're the hope of the world. And pray that the Lord Jesus Christ continues to show us how to lead them forward in the ways of kindness and mercy. And the good news I have for us today in the Word of Hope is I saw some fantastic 7-year-olds today, and I know there are more of them out there. May God bless you, and I will see you at Mass tomorrow.